All right, so let's get right into it. We're going to dive into the story of a company that was born from a national trauma, a company designed to see everything, that is now shaping our world in ways most of us don't even realize.
We're talking about Palantir, a company that tracks wars, pandemics, and profits, pretty much all while staying deep in the shadows.
So, to really get what Palantir's all about, you gotta rewind the clock, back to the massive intelligence failure that started this whole thing. After 9/11, this was the question on everyone's mind. US agencies had the data, right? They had all these little pieces of the puzzle, but they had absolutely no way to connect the dots. So, Silicon Valley steps in with this big idea. What if you could build software to find a threat hidden in just oceans of data? PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel had this thought. Hey, if my algorithms can sniff out a stolen credit card, why can't they find a stolen airplane? And just like that, he named it Palantir.
And you can't talk about Palantir without talking about its founders, because the whole company is this weird mix of their two personalities. On one hand, you have Peter Thiel, the libertarian tech visionary, the strategist. And on the other, you have Alex Karp, this wild-haired guy with a PhD in philosophy who would lecture his employees on the ethics of power. I mean, the strategist and the monk. It's a fascinating duo.
Okay, get this. Their very first investor? Not some big Silicon Valley VC firm. Nope. It was In-Q-Tel, which is literally the CIA's own venture capital arm. Yeah, you heard that right. The CIA has a VC firm. The mission was to build this ultimate God-view intelligence platform. But honestly, in the early days, the software was a total mess, and the government agencies, they wanted nothing to do with it.
So, this struggling software needed a place to prove itself. And that place wasn't going to be some cozy lab in Palo Alto. No, it was going to be the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, you have to picture it. Commanders on the ground were just drowning in data. We're talking 10,000 spreadsheets, countless intel reports, satellite images, all while IEDs were going off every single day. They had all the pieces, but no way to put the puzzle together.
So in comes Palantir with their solution, Gotham. Think of it like this. It took all that chaotic, messy battlefield intel and just stitched it together into one clear picture. It basically looked like Google Maps, but for counterinsurgency. Kind of wild.
And the impact? Well, this quote says it all. For the very first time, soldiers on the ground had a tool they actually wanted to use, one that could show them not just who planted a bomb, but the entire network, who bought the phone, who sent the money, where they all met. This was software that could literally save their lives.
But here's the thing. Back in Washington, D.C., Palantir was a complete nobody. They were this Silicon Valley startup with no lobbyists, no fancy steak dinners with procurement officers. So, when the Army tried to hand a huge contract to one of the usual insiders, well, Palantir did something absolutely unthinkable.
They sued the United States Army, and they won. A federal judge came down and said, nope, the Army broke the law. You can't just ignore software that your own soldiers in the field are saying works. That sent a shockwave through the system. The message was loud and clear. Innovation wasn't optional anymore.
And winning that lawsuit? Man, it was like blowing the doors wide open for Palantir. All of a sudden, government contracts just started pouring in. First up was Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, then the Department of Homeland Security. And just like that, the company's mission started to shift. Big time. But this expansion created a huge rift inside the company. The same software that was helping find IEDs in Iraq was now being used to identify undocumented workers in the US. It got so bad that one engineer actually resigned, leaving this quote that just perfectly captures the ethical mess the company was now facing.
So, after basically conquering the world of government agencies, Palantir needed a new mountain to climb. They set their sights on a totally different battlefield, the Fortune 500.
And to do that, they rolled out a new platform called Foundry. The easiest way to think about it is that Foundry is Gotham's clean-cut corporate cousin. It's the same ridiculously powerful data crunching engine underneath, but they just swapped out the combat boots for a buttoned-up suit. This thing was designed for CEOs, not generals. And boom! All of a sudden, Palantir becomes this quiet, invisible decision-maker inside the world's biggest corporations. This wasn't just another analytics dashboard. No, it became the central nervous system for these companies. It was telling oil giants where to drill, telling pharma companies which drugs to fast-track. And, get this, during the pandemic, it was telling entire governments how to manage their national supply chains.
And this is where things get a little, well, weird. For all its power, Almost nobody outside of Palantir truly understands how Foundry makes its recommendations. It doesn't just show you a dashboard, it tells you what to do.
Yeah, and this quote from a critic just hits the nail on the head. The core concern is that during the pandemic, we handed this immense power over national logistics and healthcare decisions to a black box system, partly because it got results, and partly because it looked good.
So that brings us to today, where Palantir isn't just a contractor anymore, it's basically become critical infrastructure. You want to see what that looks like? Just look at the war in Ukraine. Palantir isn't just helping the military there. For all intents and purposes, it is the military's brain. They brand it AI for warfighting, with algorithms literally whispering to commanders, aim here.
Okay, so as you can imagine, this much power has led to some fierce criticism. Privacy advocates call it the Oracle of Orwell, a war profiteer enabling predictive policing. Now, Palantir's defense is simple. We save lives, period. They say, look, we just built the hammer. It's not our fault if someone else uses it to break a window. But the counter-argument is that when the hammer starts suggesting where to swing, that whole defense kind of falls apart.
And now, they're moving beyond just prediction. Their new platform, Meta Constellation, is designed not just to analyze the present, but to simulate and manage the future. Think of it like a digital twin for an entire country, running models to see what happens if a supply chain breaks or civil unrest erupts, and then recommending actions to prevent it.
Which all comes down to this one final, really profound question. This is a company that was built on a promise to protect us, but now it helps shape the very world it was meant to defend. And that leaves us with one massive, unanswered question.